Now, today I have a very important subject, which is talking about the purpose of having negative emotions. And here I'm already implying that yes, there is a purpose, and it is very important to understand, because by missing the idea of the purpose, by missing and not knowing the reason why we have them in the first place, we're never really able to actually resolve them, to change them, to work with them. In our Western society, we habitually repress emotions because they are quite uncomfortable, let's be honest. And depending on the intensity of the negative emotion you're experiencing at any given moment, this could be very, very uncomfortable. And if you're not able to resolve that emotion, then you might be actually stuck in that negative mood, as I would call it, when the emotion prevails for an extended period of time and you just dwell on it and it becomes your life. Now, when you understand the purpose behind negative emotions, you're able to change them. Now, first, let's start with really emphasizing the fact that emotions are seeking transformation all the time. Emotions are energy and motion. And, I've made a lot of discoveries in the last years looking at energy, looking at emotions, looking at what changes into what under what circumstances, what gives us the lighter state, how we can navigate the life and our emotions, our energy, emotions in the way that we feel better and better over time, to the extent that we can live in a flow that actually feels like life is way more effortless. And what I've concluded and made insights and analyzed out of those discoveries is that emotions as energy emotions, it also has, of course, this dual nature that lives in our bodies, that makes us feel uncomfortable, but it tells us about something. And as I was discovering the experience of being in touch with the inner self, that is that part of us that tells us what is true and aligned for us, that is like this inner intelligence that propels our growth towards fulfilling our life's potential. Now, the inner core self communicates to our awareness. It has to speak some language because we are so detached. People are so detached from that inner knowing. And it has to speak some language that will be visible and that will be experienced. So because it comes from somewhere within, it communicates through your sensations, it communicates through your body and through the negative feelings. The communication that it gives you is, it tells you that something is off track from fulfilling that potential, fulfilling your destiny, living your best life, being balanced. Balance is the biggest concern, and fulfilling your own potential as a human being on this planet and elevating yourself to the higher states of consciousness, which is the constant growth. Whenever you stumble across a thought, belief, circumstance, that some choices that you made, the inner core self communicates to you through those feelings. It's like hitting a wall. And of course, if you hit the wall, you can feel it through your sensations. It's uncomfortable. You feel it through your sensations. So once you get that metaphor in your mind, that whenever you have some sort of negative emotions, it's like hitting a wall of fulfilling your destiny, fulfilling your growth, fulfilling your gaining the higher states of consciousness, the highest as possible. And it's like hitting the wall, hitting the ceiling or something. and your inner self gives you those feelings, and it communicates through those feelings. They may sound like thoughts, because when you experience those negative emotions, it gives you those ideas that are not yours. It puts you in a space of scarcity or fear or reactivity, that you would be trapped if you acted on this in that realm of constraint. And if you were to act out from those emotions based on the ideas of scarcity that you get given, within being in that mood of negative emotions, you get all the ideas of scarcity, the fear, the anger, all kinds of things. And acting out of them is like butting your head again and again and again against that same wall and expecting that something will change in your life. But the truth of the matter is that it's actually funny that I said the truth of the matter, because we're batting our heads against the matter. Most of our suffering comes from fighting, forcing, controlling against the matter, the world of the matter, the physical realm. So imagine whenever you have any negative emotions, it all relates to something in the physical world, as we call it. It's something to do with a person or people. It's something to do with your circumstances, like maybe you don't like the home you live in, or you would like another job that pays better. So it's a lot about money, and this is like very matter kind of subject for us that we butt our heads against a lot. And those subjects of the matter is what we keep struggling against when we don't allow ourselves to use the awareness of what that emotion is trying to say. We keep getting stuck in that loop of, I call it an emotional roller coaster, because we have negative emotions, we get into our heads during that state of scarcity, fear, anger, or reactivity, and we try to figure out our world based on that, very limited mindset, mind frame. And then we experience more negative emotions, and then we get into our heads again, and sometimes we produce actions in our life that again produce circumstances that are detrimental, that work to our disadvantage, because all they do, they prove to us through the energy we're putting out there, they prove to us the negative mind frame of how the world works. But we literally fuel the energy with that mind frame of scarcity, the fear, reactivity, anger, revenge, jealousy, by acting out, by taking any sort of action outside ourselves. But now, if you were to use the awareness of the negative emotions, this is the best, because you take ownership of being the creator of your feelings, which you are. You create your own feelings. All of your feelings reside inside of you. And the proof, the evidence I can give to you to understand how you produce your own emotions is the simplest thing. When you have a memory, a simple memory of something that can give you good emotions or gives you some negative emotions, you can make yourself feel something by visualizing, by having a memory, by having a thought. A single thought gives you the same range, full range of emotions as experiencing those emotions when we are, doing our thing in the world, when we think the world gives us those positive or negative emotions, whether that's people, events, objects, but the emotions actually live inside of you. All these outside things, they just trigger something in us that makes us evoke those emotions, and it indicates whether we're on the right track or on the wrong track, which happens in the face of negative emotions. I hope I'm making this as clear as possible, because this subject is so important for me. I'm writing a whole book about this. I'm talking about this as much as I can, and I want to make it as accessible as possible. So feel free to shout in your comments whenever you still are not seeing enough clarity. So I hope you get some use out of this. And when you take that ownership of having those emotions, like producing those emotions from within, this is when you become empowered. Because now that you've taken ownership, taken responsibility, you are ready to change the emotion. And it's not by forcing emotion, but it's by approaching it in the way that I will just describe. It's looking at the thought patterns that you have. Remember, I just said your thoughts literally activate emotions inside of you. So you're looking at your thoughts, you're looking at beliefs. Beliefs are base, the foundation of any thoughts. So they're framed, they're a filter that makes you have any thoughts. Because, people have various thoughts depending on what kind of beliefs they have. And you might be having beliefs that are limiting, that impose some limitations. So you might want to inspect if there is some whisper inside of you that tries to justify how unworthy you are, how incapable you are, how unlovable you are, how everyone dislikes you, how you're completely useless in achieving this goal. And you might having these narratives and stories over and over. And all they are just thought patterns. Beliefs are nothing more than thought patterns that are wedged somewhere inside of you that can be changed. Like I said, behind the negative emotion, underneath the negative emotions, you want to move it aside and say to yourself, now I will focus what actually provoked this, what made me feel that way, what happened inside of me, in my thought patterns, in my beliefs, in my actual thought that I had, what I believe about the situation, what meaning am I drawing out of this situation that tells me that something is wrong, and now I'm judging this situation. I'm resisting this. Remember, whenever we resist something, it persists. Again, it's like trying to push that wall and imagining that it will move one day. No, it will just keep pushing back. The same thing happens when you resist feelings or resist some situations in your life. You might also look besides the thoughts, the thought patterns, which is the beliefs. I don't even like using the word beliefs so much, because people think that it's so final. Having a belief is so final, and it's untrue. By just using a different word, you might notice how easier it is to let it go. So you're looking at thoughts, thought patterns, aka beliefs, and your choices or actions, the situations that you've put yourself into based on the thoughts and beliefs that you'd had before. Now, if you've chosen a certain relationship that is, unhelpful to you, that may be keeps you from growing, whether that's a friendship or a romantic relationship, or maybe a business partner that you're working with. There's always going to be some negative belief behind your choices, behind your action of you getting into that partnership in the first place, behind you sticking with it for years maybe, and your head having been justifying for all the reasons you should stick around with in that dynamic. But what you have, the beliefs, the thought patterns, they keep justifying why it's okay. But the truth of the matter is that your inner core self is pure potentiality. It wants to bring about you the awareness of full potentiality, which is what you are, what you have. The negative beliefs are all false. You can immediately assume any negative beliefs you have are completely false. No one is born with them. We come to this planet as pure potentiality, and we are pure potentiality. All that gives us the negative beliefs that later limit us is the ideas that we borrow from other people, or the interpretations we have as children. And children develop in the way that they can't grasp the fact that the world doesn't revolve around them. And if you are a child, you think you are developed. This is a natural stage of development when you have beliefs that everything revolves around you, meaning that when something bad happens, it happens because of you. But things happen not because of you. A lot of things that happened when you were a child happened completely not because of you, but you made it interpret it that way because the development stage that children have, which makes them believe that everything is around them. And there is a reason behind that as well that I'm not getting into. But as you become adult, you should leave that belief way behind, because hopefully you can acknowledge that the world doesn't revolve around you. Believe it or not, some people don't get it still. But if you acknowledge that things happen just because they happen, oftentimes they have more to do with other people, way more to do with them, their decisions, their own thoughts, their own thought patterns, their feelings, their motivations. Even if they affect you, they actually don't have anything to do with you. Now that you can grasp this and really, hopefully you can remember, if one thing you can remember from this video is that all negative beliefs are false to you. I hope it really gets deep inside of you today, because I did have a lot of negative beliefs, a lot. And I had to make a continuous progress in understanding where they were coming from until I realized the truth of having that pure potentiality, that it's all we are, and we borrow those beliefs and we live by them as if that's true, but they're actually quite false, entirely false, in fact. Now that you've inspected your beliefs, your thoughts, your actions that are based on the beliefs, you can see how your negative feelings, your negative emotions are simply indicating that you're outside of living your full potentiality, that you're kind of moved out, and your core self, your inner knowing, simply wants you to align to a thought, to a belief, to seeing the situation and making the choices based on the truth that is, you are the pure potentiality, and that you can do what you want to do. You can live your life happy and abundant. And if we get all tangled up in just bracing against those negative emotions, and if we keep just focusing, oh my God, I'm having this negative emotion, what does that mean? Oh, I'm so anxious. I'm always anxious. I'm an anxious person. You keep yourself stuck in the symptom and putting an end to an evolution, natural evolution of an emotion, which is always seeking change. It always seeks to be transformed. Now that you've put a cap by claiming like, this is my personality and I'm always anxious, now you keep yourself a prisoner to a really limiting idea that won't allow you to move past what we call anxiety. But because emotions, our energy emotion, they always seek transformation, they will transform. When you put the emotion aside, look at the thoughts, thought patterns, your choices, your actions, acknowledge that all the negative beliefs, the limiting beliefs are false, you can immediately feel how your body is relaxing into this, how your emotions wash away and change, transform into something else. You might want to spend some time, but the times that you have that experience when it happens, it will give you the evidence that it's happening for real for you. And that's all you need to keep going, keep trying. If you're willing to try this, of course. You might not want to because, I'm giving, it's what worked for me. I've tested it on so many different circumstances. I've used this to heal a physical disease, using the transcendence of my emotions, moving beyond the stagnation, stuckness to the world of matter, to the physical realm. I used it by transcending my emotions, by moving my levels of consciousness higher and higher, and constantly figuring out the ways to feel lighter, to feel more effortless, to feel more in flow. And because I'm a highly sensitive person, maybe you are too, I've been noticing over time more freedom in my body. Like I can literally feel the changes happening in the real time. And if you are willing to take this for a spin, take this idea for a ride and keep experimenting with this, I'd be very curious to what you think about this, how that works for you. I've worked with so many people that they made huge progress, moving beyond their limitations of mind, moving beyond the limitations of consciousness that we have when we choose to simply be entangled and just so enslaved, changed to the negative emotions and their just the feeling, just the sensation, embracing against this, So I leave this with you for now. I hope this has been useful. Let me know any thoughts you might have after watching this video. I hope you get a lot of insights, and I will be talking way more about this. And even if some of my videos may not have the title that does interest you, all of my videos weave in how we can be living in flow, which is that effortless, more blissful state in life where we simply are. So again, thanks for watching. I really hope it has been useful, and I hope to see you in the next video.